Early in the morning, Miyu diligently gets ready for school. She carefully puts on her makeup, making sure that everything is absolutely perfect. Meanwhile, other students are already on their way to school. They walk together with their classmates, pleased that they can spend their days with friends. Miyu is almost done getting ready. Standing in front of the mirror, she practices greeting Yusuke, making sure she looks presentable. Her brother finds her annoying, and her mother calls out for them to hurry since it's almost time for school. Grabbing her pink backpack, she finally makes her way to school. Surprisingly, she isn't late at all, and she cheerfully greets a pair of friends by the lockers. As she walks to class, she casually and confidently greets everyone. However, once she steps inside the classroom, she nervously greets Yusuke despite practicing it so many times. When he greets her back, she blushes bright pink and takes her seat as Manami and Aoi approach her desk to talk. She immediately becomes hyper, asking her friends if her eyelashes are on point. They don't really see the difference and tell Miyu to just use fake ones to save herself the trouble. Miyu complains, saying she doesn't like how false eyelashes look, and goes on about how hard it is to buy good mascara. She then turns to Yusuke for his opinion, but he bluntly replies that he can't relate to her at all. She laughs at his response, and her friends are confused about why Miyu enjoys picking on Yusuke. Miyu explains that she just loves how he always shuts her down, then excitedly offers Yusuke her services if he ever needs help finding mascara. When he shuts her down again, she throws her head back in glee, while her friends scold her for bothering him. She mentally apologizes to him, because the real reason she picks on him is that she's in love with him. Her friends continue chatting as Miyu silently admires Yusuke. He may seem like a distant guy with glasses, but he's actually very blunt. Yusuke is also helping Kentaro with his homework, pointing out straightforwardly which parts the teacher will mark as wrong. Miyu also admires how Yusuke treats everyone the same as she watches how he interacts with classmates. She recalls how they ended up sitting next to each other at the start of the semester. She had been incredibly happy and didn't know how to contain her joy. She was nervous and tried to be friendly. Yusuke answered her normally, even turning down her help. While most people might have been offended, Miyu knows that he simply treats everyone equally, and that's a trait she admires. Her friends try to get her attention, and she finally snaps back to reality. She apologizes and says that she feels an actual person does better at revving up a crowd, then quickly turns to Yusuke for his opinion. As usual, he says he has no idea. Miyu's friends feel sorry for him and tell him that he's free to complain about Miyu. He simply blinks and says that it's fine. His answer shocks Miyu, and she turns back to her friends to defend herself. Miyu feels relieved that Yusuke doesn't mind. In her heart, she still feels bad about how she's always bothering him. In truth, she wants to talk to him normally and tell him how she feels, but she's too worried about her social image. She looks at him longingly, feeling down about how different they are. Manami then suggests they go eat at Kingberg after school. Miyu gives her friends an uneasy look because she still has homework to do, but when she sees their expectant faces, she enthusiastically agrees to hang out. As the school day continues, Miyu gets approached by a lot of people. First by Kentaro, who borrows her homework, and then by classmates who are also fans of hers. They ask if it's okay to follow her on social media, making Miyu worry if she has posted anything embarrassing recently. After class, Miyu and her usual group head to Kingberg. Kentaro brings up Yusuke, which makes Miyu choke on her food. They start talking about how Yusuke is really smart and might end up going to a top university. Manami points out that Miyu is the one closest to him in their group. Miyu chokes on her drink and tries to hide her crush on Yusuke. Luckily, the topic shifts to Sudaken, and Shuji comments that girls are really into that type of guy. Miyu argues that Sudaken is the only one who's boyfriend material. She successfully avoids revealing who she really likes, but feels a little sick that she has to keep acting for the sake of self-preservation. One day after school, Miyu feels exhausted and spends some time alone in the bathroom. She doesn't like pretending, but she knows she has to. Eventually, she leaves so she can finally head home. She lets out a yawn as she heads to the lockers, surprised to see Yusuke still there. Nervously, she strikes up a conversation and learns that he stayed late for committee work. Unable to control her curiosity, she asks which direction he goes to get home. When he tells her he turns right at the gate, Miyu immediately exclaims that she does too. She quickly checks her surroundings, and once she knows no one is watching, she decides to invite him to walk part of the way home together. They end up doing just that, and Miyu is happy to learn that Yusuke's route is similar to hers. She voices her surprise, but gets nervous when Yusuke doesn't respond. Trying to keep the atmosphere light, Miyu reasons that they probably never run into each other due to having different lives at school. When Yusuke gives only a one-word reply, she decides to talk about how huge the burgers at Kingberg are. She's surprised when Yusuke responds by asking if the burger tasted good. Quickly recovering, she says that it does and jokingly invites him to go there. Yusuke agrees, leaving Miyu stunned into confused silence. She tries to make sense of his response since it's so uncharacteristic of him. Aware that the silence is stretching on, she desperately thinks of something to say to avoid the awkwardness. Frustrated, she accidentally bumps her hand against his. She freezes at the contact, and Yusuke stops to look at her. They stand there for a few seconds before moving again. Then the unthinkable happens. Yusuke gently takes her hand and continues walking at a comfortable pace. Miyu follows him, still unsure if what's happening is real or just a dream. She wants to enjoy the moment, but her mind is filled with how sweaty her hands are. She hears her heart pounding in her chest as she slowly realizes that this is real. Yusuke spots some students from their school nearby and quickly lets go of Miyu's hand, making her tear up a little at the loss of contact. After that, everything becomes a blur for Miyu. She vaguely remembers Yusuke saying he was heading in a different direction to get home, and herself rushing forward out of embarrassment from being so close to him. She makes it home safely, but now she can't stop overthinking everything. Her brother finds her sulking on the floor. She only starts moving again when it finally sinks in that she had just held hands with Yusuke. She goes through the motions of eating dinner and getting ready for bed, but her mind is still trying to process what happened. Just as she's about to sleep, she realizes that Yusuke was the one who initiated it. She starts rolling around on her bed, caught between fear and delight since she has no idea how she'll face everyone tomorrow. Her heart keeps pounding, and she's sure she won't be able to sleep at all. She screams in frustration, annoying her brother in the process. Contrary to her expectations, she ends up sleeping through the entire evening. In the morning, she rolls off her bed, the fall waking her up. Noticing how bright it is, she grabs her phone to check the time. Realizing she's late, she hurriedly puts on her uniform and heads to the main room. No one is home, but there's food waiting for her along with a note saying that it's okay to be late sometimes. She checks the wall clock and sees that it's already midday, so rushing won't make a difference. She decides to take her time and reheat the food before eating. She arrives at school around lunchtime, and her friends are shocked, since Miyu has never been late before. She smiles to herself and looks over at Yusuke's desk, only to realize that it's empty. Kentaro takes Yusuke's seat and bluntly asks if Miyu is dating Yusuke, insisting that his friend Gapachiro saw them walking home together. Miyu feels annoyed that Kentaro is teasing her about it, since things between her and Yusuke are in such a delicate stage. Then it hits her that someone really did see them together, maybe even holding hands. She starts wondering how they were spotted. She struggles to answer and decides to brush it off as a big misunderstanding, not realizing that Yusuke has just walked in. Yusuke doesn't comment on her excuse and asks Kentaro for his seat. Kentaro promises to move, but Yusuke says he only needs his notebook from his desk. After picking up his things, he leaves, completely ignoring Miyu. Miyu watches him go, now certain that he heard everything. During science class, Miyu can't focus on the lesson. Her mind is filled with guilt over being rude to Yusuke. She considers apologizing right away, but knows that doing so would cause a scene and hurt her social standing. She feels trapped since she wants to apologize as soon as possible, but doesn't know how. During PE, she's completely distracted and can't even pick up the shuttlecocks properly. She worries that Yusuke might be feeling down, and that she's the reason why. After school, she knows she has to apologize before he leaves, but she's too scared to approach him with so many people around. To her shock, Yusuke is the one who comes up to her. He apologizes for yesterday and tells her to forget it ever happened, then turns to leave without waiting for her reply. Manami soon joins her with the rest of their friends, eager to hang out as usual, but they quickly notice how strangely quiet Miyu has become. All the noise around her suddenly feels overwhelming. Bracing herself, Miyu finally admits that she's in love with Yusuke. Her friends are stunned as she explains that she invited him to walk home with her yesterday, and that everything she's feeling is one-sided. Through tears, she looks at Kentaro and asks if what she did was wrong. Kentaro insists that just walking home together wouldn't make anyone suspect anything, then suddenly realizes that he was the one who asked if they were dating during lunch. They tell her that Yusuke has already left and encourage her to run after him so she can clear everything up. Miyu rushes off, determined to catch him, but she runs comically slow. Her friends cheer her on, and she finally pushes herself forward, letting her feet lead the way. She realizes that after confessing, she feels much lighter. Meanwhile, Yusuke is already halfway home. At the bridge, he scolds himself for giving in to temptation and holding her hand. He had always liked Miyu and the way she constantly talked to him. He thought she was just friendly to everyone, but when she shyly asked to walk home together, he began to hope he might actually have a chance. But after that, she didn't show up in the morning, and her absence made him miss her deeply. When she finally appeared at lunch, her words made him feel like he had been rejected. As he keeps walking, he's shocked when he hears Miyu shout that she loves him. He turns around just as she runs toward him, apologizing for all the misunderstandings she caused. She pours out her feelings, even telling him how happy she was when they held hands and admitting that she overslept because she couldn't stop thinking about it. Yusuke lets out a small laugh, then steadies himself so he can respond seriously. Blushing, he admits his own feelings, making Miyu gush over how cute he looks. She starts crying in relief, and Yusuke takes out his handkerchief, telling her she'll ruin her mascara. She cries even harder with happiness, touched that Yusuke actually remembers the silly things she tells him. The next morning, Yusuke wakes up and pets his cat, Tempura, before getting ready to leave. His grandmother spots him by the garden, and they exchange greetings before he heads out. As he nears the school, Kentaro greets him by slapping his back. Yusuke studies him for a moment before asking if Miyu talked to him about them dating. Kentaro smiles and admits that she did. Yusuke says that he was planning to keep their relationship a secret because he doesn't want to tarnish Miyu's reputation. This makes Kentaro laugh a little. To him, Miyu isn't so famous that her popularity would suddenly tank just because she's dating an introvert. Still, he thinks Yusuke is a good guy for putting Miyu first. He assures Yusuke that if Miyu is fine with telling everyone, then it should be okay. As they walk to school together, Kentaro tells Yusuke about how Miyu declared her love and ran out of the classroom. He jokes that after that scene, Miyu might become even more popular because of the sheer entertainment value she brings to their group. Yusuke tells Kentaro that he's surprisingly easy to talk to, which catches Kentaro off guard. In return, Kentaro gives him some candy for the compliment. At school, Miyu is already with her friends, enthusiastically talking about how amazing Sudaken is in his latest live-action drama. Her friends stare at her, unimpressed, before finally complaining that they still haven't received any important updates from her. To them, her relationship status is way more important than Sudaken's latest drama. Manami groans about how much Miyu keeps talking about Sudaken, then grins at her, hinting that she knows Miyu has been using him as a cover to gush about someone else. As Miyu screams in embarrassment, her friends realize she might struggle to hold conversations with Yusuke. Manami then pulls up an article meant to help Miyu talk to him. They all lean in to read it, and the first piece of advice tells Miyu to let Yusuke talk more so she doesn't keep talking about herself. Miyu already feels guilty for having one-sided conversations with him. Miyu realizes that the article is meant for couples and starts to panic, but it only takes her a few seconds to recover and cheer up again. That happiness doesn't last long, though, as she starts worrying that her relationship might end someday. Determined, she promises herself that she'll become the ultimate girlfriend. Aoi smiles kindly at her and asks what she plans to do. Miyu suddenly grows shy and says that she'll ask him to walk home with her today. During their break, Miyu's friends go over to her table and ask Yusuke if it's okay for them to hang out with Miyu like usual. Yusuke says that it's fine, which makes Miyu joke that she feels lonely. That comment grabs Yusuke's attention. He turns to her and earnestly asks if he should have said no instead. Miyu panics under his gaze and quickly admits that she was just joking. Aoi is the first to recover and gently nudges Miyu to say something to Yusuke. Nervously, Miyu tries to ask Yusuke to walk home with her, but under his intense stare, she struggles to get the words out. Still, she manages to ask him. After school, they leave the classroom together. Miyu stiffly walks beside him, muttering that this is harder than she thought. As they walk through the campus, several people greet Miyu, and she energetically greets them back. Near the school gate, Miyu's friends find it strange that no one acknowledged Yusuke. Before long, it's just Miyu and Yusuke walking home together. Miyu thinks back to the article about couples and realizes that she's always talked about herself, leaving her unsure of how to ask Yusuke about his interests. Yusuke notices that Miyu is struggling and considers making the first move himself. Miyu studies his face and senses that he wants to say something. Excited, she eagerly urges him to speak, but that only makes Yusuke pull back and say that it's nothing. Miyu watches him, wondering if she said something wrong. When they reach the point where they're supposed to part ways, she feels disappointed and starts to say goodbye. Suddenly, Yusuke grabs her wrist and asks if she wants to spend more time together. Miyu eagerly agrees. They sit down at a nearby park, and Yusuke shares that Kentaro talked to him before school. He then admits that he originally planned to keep their relationship a secret. Miyu cuts him off and immediately apologizes for getting carried away. Her happiness got the best of her, and she ended up blurting everything out. This makes Yusuke stifle a laugh, and Miyu can't help admiring the way he laughs. After calming down, he tells her that he doesn't mind other people knowing about their relationship. What matters most to him is how she wants it to be. Miyu suddenly feels guilty. She realizes that she's been so caught up in how other people think relationships should work. What she has with Yusuke is unique and doesn't need to follow anyone else's rules. She tells Yusuke that she wants to live proudly and say what she truly likes. Her declaration leaves Yusuke stunned into silence before he shyly asks her out this weekend. They both suggest going out for burgers at the same time, which makes them laugh when they realize they have the exact same idea. They decide to look up places they can go, but when Yusuke searches on his phone, he accidentally reveals his search history, which shows questions about how to talk to his girlfriend. Embarrassed, he dashes away, but Miyu quickly chases after him and catches up. He drops to his knees in shame and asks her to forget about it, but Miyu firmly declares that she won't because everything about the situation is too adorable. She tells Yusuke that she loves knowing he thinks about her even when they're apart. It makes her feel like she's not the only one happy about them starting to date. Gathering his courage, Yusuke pulls her into a hug and quietly tells her that he loves her. admitting that he hadn't gotten the chance to say it properly before. When they pull apart, Miyu is so flustered that it feels like steam is coming out of her head. She then asks if they can watch a movie on their date too, pointing out that she noticed his search history about movies to watch. They resume walking home, and Miyu notices that her throat is sore from all the shouting earlier. As she jokes about her hoarse voice, Yusuke pulls out a candy for her. Miyu happily accepts it, joking that he's like a magician pulling treats out of his pocket. She doesn't know that the candy actually came from Kentaro, who suddenly feels that someone is talking about him. One afternoon with her friends, Miyu can't help but look forward to her date with Yusuke. Her friends are happy for her and encourage her to take photos during the date. When Miyu hesitates, they realize it's because she's terrible at smiling for pictures. It suddenly dawns on them that this is why Miyu always makes strange faces whenever they take photos together. At home, Miyu struggles to choose an outfit for her date. She wants to impress Yusuke with her style, but has no idea what he prefers. In the end, she arrives at their meeting place 30 minutes early, having settled on a simple shirt with a panda print and a skirt to give herself a youthful look. She fans herself, hoping to keep the sweat to a minimum since she's already nervous enough. She considers waiting inside a cafe but decides against it, instead distracting herself by imagining what Yusuke might be wearing. He shows up just moments later and apologizes for making her wait. Miyu notices that he looks just like he does at school, and he admits that he meant to arrive 10 minutes early, but somehow ended up arriving 20 minutes early instead. They head to the burger place and are amazed by the size of the burgers. When they're both ready to eat, Miyu suddenly becomes self-conscious and stops herself from taking a big bite. She glances at Yusuke and sees that he's eating neatly, despite how huge the burger is. Yusuke catches her staring and asks if she isn't going to eat. Still feeling self-conscious, she takes small nibbles instead, eating the burger one layer at a time because of its size. Yusuke notices her struggling and gently reassures her that she can eat however she likes. Taking his advice, Miyu opens her mouth wide and takes a proper bite. She decides that this really is the best way to eat it and enjoys the food, making Yusuke laugh at her behavior. They walk around the mall afterward, visiting a few shops since they still have time before the movie. Once they're seated in the theater, Miyu looks over at him and suddenly feels the urge to hold his hand. Yusuke notices her staring and leans closer, thinking she wants to say something. The movie starts, and it doesn't take long for Miyu to get absorbed in it. It's a heartwarming animated film for all ages, and it ends on a touching note. Miyu cries a lot and is delighted when the end credits reveal a bonus animation. When the movie ends, Miyu excitedly talks about it before excusing herself to use the restroom. She notices that her makeup has smudged and hurriedly fixes it. When she comes out, she finds Yusuke waiting for her beside a display where people can take photos. She remembers the promise she made to her friends and briefly considers asking Yusuke if they can take a picture together. However, the thought of asking someone else to take their photo embarrasses her. Yusuke's soup gets her attention and suggests they check out a nearby shop. Inside, they see various pieces of merchandise from the movie they just watched. Yusuke shyly suggests that they buy something to remember their first date. They end up buying a pair of bag charms, then sit down for some drinks and chat about the movie. Miyu excitedly talks about it, but struggles to remember the names of the characters and locations. Meanwhile, Yusuke seems to remember everything with ease and asks if she was really paying attention during the movie. She gets defensive and explains that she was paying attention, and had even cried because she was so absorbed in it, which Yusuke acknowledges. She then talks about one of her favorite scenes where the witch casts a spell on the Yeti. She goes on to mention other scenes Yusuke doesn't seem to remember and explaining their meanings. This makes Yusuke pause and reflect. He realizes that the movie is much deeper than he initially thought. He comments that it's a good movie, which makes Miyu grin at him. She jokingly throws the question back at him, asking if he even watched the movie. Eventually, their date comes to an end, and they take the train home. During the ride, Miyu smiles to herself, feeling deeply fulfilled, until she suddenly realizes that the entire date revolved mostly around her. When they arrive at their stop, she feels a little sad that they'll have to part so soon. As they walk, she timidly reaches for his hand. When Yusuke's eyes widen at the contact, she quickly lets go, but he immediately takes her hand again. Encouraged, Miyu thanks him for today and admits that she had fun, though she apologizes for dragging him around so much. She honestly thinks that none of the things they did were things he didn't enjoy. Yusuke reassures her that he enjoyed himself, saying that being with her was what made it fun, so he doesn't mind as long as it's Miyu he's with. He adds that he's sure that if he hadn't gone with her, he wouldn't have been too fond of today. Miyu suddenly asks if they can take a photo together. After she explains how much she wants to remember this day and how taking a photo is one good memento, Yusuke agrees. After taking the picture, they reach the spot where they usually part ways. Before leaving, Yusuke casually remarks that pandas are cute. Overwhelmed with happiness and taking Yusuke's comment as a compliment, Miyu runs all the way home. As soon as she gets inside, her mother informs her that dinner isn't ready, but Miyu heads straight to her room to look at the photo. Her good mood instantly fades when she notices her awkward smile next to Yusuke, who looks normal. One morning, Shino greets Miyu at the lockers and immediately notices the bag charms hanging from her bag. Recognizing the character, Shino asks if Miyu watched the movie with someone. Miyu surprises her by admitting that she went with Yusuke. Shino was confused about why Miyu would watch the movie with him, which leads Miyu to shyly reveal that she and Yusuke are currently dating. Shino pales and demands to know how and when this all happened. Before Miyu can even explain, Shino jumps to the conclusion that Yusuke must have blackmailed her. Once Miyu finally clears up the misunderstanding, the two walk to class together. Shino suddenly feels exhausted, but she admits that she's happy for Miyu, noting that Yusuke seems like a serious and kind guy. Shino adds that Miyu won't have to worry about Yusuke suddenly disappearing on her. The comment makes Miyu worry, sensing that Shino may be speaking from personal experience. In the classroom, Miyu's friends are already chatting when Miyu's loud voice catches their attention. They see Miyu and Shino enter together and ask why they're being so noisy. Miyu explains that they were talking about Shino needing a good relationship, but Shino darkly admits that she's no longer attracted to honest men. Shuji comments that girls seem to prefer delinquent types. Miyu jumps in saying she understands how other girls feel, since she thinks Suda-ken is cool. As the girls talk about their ideal types, Shuji muses that personality doesn't really matter in the end. He believes girls still choose based on status. The more popular a guy is, the more attractive he becomes, since girls want someone they can proudly walk beside. His thoughts are interrupted when Kentaro warns Miyu that Yusuke can hear her. Miyu immediately panics, which only confuses Shuji. He watches as Miyu skips over to Yusuke to check on him. Yusuke responds normally, even saying that small talk like that doesn't bother him at all. As the rest of the group watches Miyu and Yusuke with fond expressions, Shuji realizes that something is clearly going on. Kentaro tells Shuji that Yusuke and Miyu are actually dating. The revelation shocks Shuji, especially since it seems like everyone else already knows. He reflects on his earlier assumptions. Yusuke doesn't even have a place in the school's social hierarchy, and he's completely different from what Shuji thought Miyu's type would be. Soon, Kentaro joins Miyu as she chats with Yusuke, and Shuji watches them with an unimpressed look. Kentaro notices the bag charm on Yusuke's bag, and Miyu proudly shows them the matching one she attached to hers. Kentaro complains that they're acting like a couple right in front of him, which reminds the girls that Miyu had promised to show them a photo from the date. Miyu tries to deny taking one, but Yusuke accidentally makes it obvious that they did. The girls excitedly rush over to their desks, while Shuji continues struggling to process everything. A little later, Shuji heads to the vending machine to get a cold drink. He spots Miyu there, and she apologizes for getting the last of her favorite energy drink. Shuji tells her he doesn't even drink that and leans closer and asks why she chose to date Yusuke. Miyu misunderstands and asks if he wanted her to choose him instead. Shuji explains that he's just curious. Even though Miyu is a high-energy person, she's still good at reading the room. Seeing her date someone who's her complete opposite confuses him. Miyu gives a shy smile and admits that she's actually very self-conscious and that she's always acting in ways that help her fit in. She blushes as she thinks about Yusuke, sharing that she admires him because he's always true to himself, and she finds that really cool. Her face turns even redder as she tells Shuji that she could gush about Yusuke for 2 hours. Shuji immediately refuses to listen any further. Back in the classroom, Yusuke suddenly feels a cold sensation against his neck when Miyu presses a chilled can against him. He plainly admits that he was shocked, but his delivery makes Miyu think otherwise. Meanwhile, Shuji sits in his seat, watching them. He sees Miyu ask which energy drink Yusuke prefers. Yusuke chooses the smaller can and even offers to pay for it. Shuji feels himself getting sick listening to how close they are, yet he can't help but eavesdrop. Suddenly, Manami slams a frozen water bottle onto Miyu's desk. A few seconds later, Kentaro comes rushing in and asks Miyu to let him copy her homework. She scolds him, pointing out that he's been copying her work far too often and firmly refuses. Kentaro immediately turns his puppy eyes toward Yusuke, who agrees to let him copy his homework. Yusuke tells Kentaro that it won't really help him in the long run. The meaning completely flies over Kentaro's head, as he happily replies that Yusuke is helping him out a ton. From his seat, Shuji watches their interactions and suddenly realizes that Miyu sees Yusuke on a much deeper level. At the same time, he understands why the situation has been bothering him since morning. He's been so obsessed with standards and social ranks that he realizes he doesn't even have standards of his own. By the lockers, Shino notices Shuji looking down and approaches him. He barely acknowledges her, mumbling about his realization instead. Shino gives him a confused look, admitting that she finds him a little scary right now. Miyu and Yusuke soon see them and say their goodbyes, explaining that they'll be heading home together. Shuji watches as the couple leaves the school grounds, perfectly happy and unconcerned about who might see them. He tells Shino that he finds them amazing. As they walk home together, Yusuke suddenly opens up, saying that Miyu should pursue her ideal type if she wants to. Miyu is confused at first, but then realizes that her crush on Sudaken is what's bothering Yusuke. He tries to deny it, but fails miserably. Miyu giggles to herself, and once she calms down, she explains that there are different kinds of like. She can admire someone and think they're cool, but what she feels for Yusuke is something entirely different. This makes Yusuke remember all the times Miyu has called him cute instead of cool, which only frustrates him further. That night, he dreams of Miyu calling him cute again. He tries to ask her what she means, but instead of answering, she keeps repeating the word, then suddenly grows bigger and squishes him. He jolts awake to find Tempura sleeping right on his face. He pushes Tempura off and leaves his room, only to find his mother and grandmother by the dining table. His grandmother immediately praises Tempura for being cute. The comment makes Yusuke wonder if Miyu sees him the same way his grandmother looks at Tempura. As he prepares Tempura's breakfast, part of him wishes that Miyu would see him as someone cool. Unfortunately, he doesn't even have a clear idea of what Miyu herself considers cool. He tries to think it through, but the more he does, the more depressed he feels. Meanwhile, Miyu struggles to get ready faster than her brother, while their mother scolds both of them for making such a fuss early in the morning. When Miyu's brother finishes, she hops on with him asking for a ride. They pass by Yusuke, who is also on his way, but Miyu doesn't notice him when she hops off. Yusuke, however, sees everything and feels a small twinge of jealousy. Shino, who is also there, notices and casually comments on how stylish Miyu always looks when she walks to school. She then glances at Yusuke and sees how uneasy he seems, so she decides to call out to Miyu. Miyu turns around and is surprised to see Shino walking alongside Yusuke. She immediately starts fixing her hair as Shino asks whether the man on the motorcycle is her brother. When Miyu confirms it, Yusuke visibly relaxes. Shino catches this and quietly teases him before asking Miyu to introduce her to her brother someday. As they chat, Miyu and Shino learn that Yusuke is an only child. From inside the school, Shuji watches the three of them enter together and already feels bad for Yusuke. After school, Miyu excitedly prepares to walk home with Yusuke, only for him to tell her that he needs to stay in the library that day. She tries to act like it's fine, but Yusuke can clearly tell she's disappointed. Later on, Miyu sneaks into the library. Despite her efforts to be discreet, Natsumi quickly notices her. It doesn't take long before Yusuke spots her as well and asks why she's there. Nervous, Miyu blurts out that she's never really used the school library before and wanted to take the chance to check it out. She realizes too late that her excuse makes her seem like a stalker. Yusuke reassures her that he doesn't think that way at all. Secretly, he's happy that she wants to wait for him, but he worries about making her stay too long. Calmly, he suggests that she can head home first if she gets bored. Miyu takes this the wrong way and stubbornly declares that she reads books too. Realizing her outburst was unnecessary, she lowers her voice and says she'll just borrow a book and go home. She slowly moves away, scolding herself for making things awkward and worrying that she made Yusuke uncomfortable by staring at him. As she reaches the smaller shelves, Yusuke realizes she misunderstood his intentions. He approaches her and gently taps her on the back, asking if it would be okay for her to wait for him to finish his library duties. Miyu immediately brightens and nods eagerly, deciding to pass the time by reading. Meanwhile, Yusuke observes Natsumi, the other student on duty. She is surrounded by books focused on improving communication skills. When she notices him staring, they both quickly look away. Yusuke turns his thoughts inward. Lately, he's been realizing how wide the gap can be between thoughts and words, and how feelings can never be fully conveyed through language alone. Later, as Miyu waits near the entrance while Yusuke returns the library keys, she spots one of their teacher, Masaru, riding home on a small electric bike. They exchange a few words before Masaru rides off. Yusuke arrives moments later, and they begin walking home together. Miyu giggles as she tells him how cute Masaru looked riding such a small bike. Yusuke hesitates, but finally asks what she really means when she uses the word cute. At first, Miyu explains that it's the feeling of her heart being squeezed. After thinking for a moment, she simplifies it by saying that, to her, cute means something lovable. Hearing this, Yusuke suddenly realizes he doesn't mind being called cute if that's what it means. Before they part ways, Miyu proudly shows him the book she borrowed and mentions that she plans to visit the library more often since it's part of a series. Yusuke tells her that he's already read it, which excites Miyu because it means they can talk about it. She then asks him for more book recommendations, even though she knows their tastes might not always align. She adds that she thinks it's okay for them to have different interests, but she still wants to make an effort to understand him. In response, Yusuke gently pats her head before carefully cupping her face. He tells her that she's cute and her face turns bright red from the affection. Later that evening, Yusuke absent-mindedly pets Tempura in the same way, while Miyu melts into her bed. The next day, Kentaro and Shuji approach Yusuke before class. Shuji admits that he spoke with Miyu. who confessed that she actually finds Yusuke cool. The boys are confused, so Shuji explains that compliments said behind someone's back often feel more genuine. Kentaro says that Shuji is just being overly self-conscious before realizing that Shuji is genuinely trying to make Yusuke feel better. Yusuke calls him a good person, which Shuji immediately denies, claiming that it was just a single act of kindness meant to help himself deal with his own negative emotions. When the girls spot the three of them heading to class together, they're shocked, mainly because Yusuke is actually smiling. Miyu freezes, realizing she's never seen him smile like that with her. Miyu and her friends talk about their plans. Miyu admits that she wants to go to a summer festival with Yusuke. She wants to attend one with a fireworks show, but thinks the smaller local festival would be better for them. Her friends ask if that's because she wants to wear a yukata. Miyu immediately starts gushing about how she wants to see Yusuke in one instead. As Miyu nervously frets over how to invite him, Aoi gently reminds her that she should be thinking about exams. Their teacher Masaru ends the lesson by reminding the class about exams. Miyu feels as if her soul has left her body at the thought of it, but quickly tries to distract herself by rambling about random bibimbap trivia. Miyu decides to share her trivia with Yusuke anyway, despite Aoi warning her not to bother him. Manami and Kentaro jump in, insisting that it's fine since exams aren't happening yet. Miyu knows full well that the two of them are even more unprepared than she is, so she declares that they should all have a study session together. At that moment, Kentaro notices that Shuji has already left, apparently because of a part-time job he just started. Yusuke then gets up to leave as well, leading the others to assume that he doesn't want to study with them. Miyu quickly corrects them, explaining that Yusuke actually has a part-time job at the library. At the mention of the library, Manami and Kentaro suddenly decide that it's the perfect place to study. They settle in to study together, but Kentaro almost immediately struggles to recall anything from class. Still, he and Manami remain strangely confident, insisting that they'll be fine if they memorize the answers. Miyu snaps at Kentaro when he asks for the answer to a problem without even trying to solve it first. He and Manami go to Yusuke's desk to ask for help instead. Without hesitation, Yusuke explains the solution. Encouraged by how clearly he explains, Kentaro declares that they should all aim for Tokyo University together. Natsume, the girl on duty with him, overhears their exchange and can't help but chuckle. When Manami and Kentaro press Yusuke about which universities he thinks they could realistically get into, he firmly refuses to answer. Back at the table, Miyu watches them with a soft expression. Aoi notices and asks why she looks so happy. Miyu admits that she feels relieved and happy seeing Yusuke getting along with everyone. Aoi says she understands that feeling since Yusuke seemed to belong to a different world from them. Aoi then shyly asks if Miyu thinks she can become as comfortable around Yusuke as the others are. Miyu confidently replies that she believes they will get along well since they are quite similar. Before she can elaborate, Manami runs back to their table, excitedly proclaiming that with Yusuke's help, she really feels like she could make it to Tokyo University. Miyu tells her she's thinking way too far ahead, only for Manami to say that Yusuke told her the exact same thing. Realizing she and Yusuke had the same thought, Miyu turns bright red and heads over to the front desk. At the counter, Miyu scolds Kentaro for bothering Yusuke at work. The group heads home together. Taking the moment, Aoi apologizes on behalf of their friends for bothering him during his shift. To her surprise, Yusuke admits that he actually enjoyed it. Aoi is puzzled since she can't imagine finding it fun to be interrupted at work. Kentaro suggests that they all grab something to eat. Miyu and Yusuke suddenly speak at the same time, both suggesting bibimbap. Miyu lights up, clearly pleased that Yusuke remembered her trivia, but insists that she'll stick to the standard pronunciation. As some of them walk ahead, Aoi and Yusuke naturally fall a little behind. Aoi lets out a small laugh. She tells him gently that Miyu is often like that, then adds, half teasing, that he should give it his all in their relationship. Noticing they're lagging behind, Miyu jogs back with a playful grin, asking if they were talking about her. From up ahead, Manami and Kisuke call out that they're taking too long, and soon the whole group closes the distance. At the restaurant, Miyu complains that she didn't get the stone pot version of bibimbap. Another day, Miyu stands in her kitchen staring at a flyer announcing the grand opening promo of a new convenience store in their neighborhood. She declares that she'll go check it out, even if she's only wearing her house clothes. Her mother immediately asks her to pick up toilet paper. At the same time, Miyu's brother suddenly appears at the top of the stairs and bluntly comments that her outfit is way too sloppy to wear outside. He then casually asks her to buy him cigarettes, which Miyu flatly refuses. As she walks toward the store, she reluctantly admits to herself that her brother might have a point. She really wouldn't want Yusuke to see her dressed like this. Near the store entrance, she runs into Kentaro, and they both burst out laughing at how casually they're dressed. When they step inside, they're surprised to see Shuji working behind the counter. Shuji, however, looks anything but pleased to see them. Miyu finds this strange since Shuji doesn't even live in this area. He explains curtly that he doesn't want his middle school friends to see him working here. Clearly irritated, Shuji adopts a professional tone, telling them to go pick out whatever they want so they won't crowd the counter. Kentaro and Miyu return to the counter with their snacks, with Miyu also carrying a large pack of tissue paper. Miyu and Kentaro decide to eat their popsicles outside. Miyu inhales deeply and notices that the air smells like it just rained. She smiles to herself, saying how much she loves that scent, but Kentaro doesn't really get it. She tries to explain what she means, then immediately stops herself, deciding that describing it out loud would be too embarrassing. Suddenly, they hear the sound of a motorcycle approaching. Miyu panics, thinking it might be the police, and Kentaro joins in her alarm until they realize it's just Minami. Minami greets them casually and explains that she came to this part of town because the breeze here feels especially nice. She suddenly glances at Miyu's outfit and asks if she isn't embarrassed to be outside in her loungewear. Miyu shrugs, saying that she doesn't care since this is her own neighborhood. Still, she admits that she wouldn't want Yusuke to see her dressed like this. As if on cue, Yusuke arrives on his bike and immediately spots her. Miyu suddenly bolts out of sight. Minami and Kentaro scramble to cover for her, hurriedly telling Yusuke that Miyu wasn't even there. Sensing something odd but choosing not to press the issue, Yusuke plays along and heads inside to shop. He doesn't react at all when he sees Shuji behind the counter. Meanwhile, Miyu thanks her friends breathlessly for covering for her before taking off down the street, hoping she can escape before Yusuke notices her. As she runs, her hair tie comes loose. She thinks that Yusuke wouldn't see her anyway, but he easily catches up to her on his bike. Realizing there's no way to run anymore, Miyu slows down, tears welling up as they decide to walk together instead. She admits honestly that she didn't want Yusuke to see her in such sloppy clothes. Yusuke tells her calmly that he really doesn't mind. This only makes Miyu more conflicted. Yusuke then asks her directly why it's fine for her other friends to see her like this, but not him. Miyu hesitates, then explains that it's different with them. She's known them for much longer. With Yusuke, she still wants to look good, because he's special to her. For some reason, Yusuke looks upset. Sensing this, Miyu decides to explain her feelings in a different way. She compares it to serving food. She describes how one is sloppily dumped onto a plate while the other is carefully arranged with garnish and cute silverware. The flavor is identical, yet the effort and presentation feel different. Yusuke listens quietly before saying that no matter how food looks, if it's something he likes, he would still eat it. That catches Miyu off guard. She immediately protests that she actually likes it when people compliment her effort in making something look cute. Yusuke then realizes that this was her way of explaining her earlier dilemma. After a moment, Miyu shyly asks if she can ride on the back of his bike. As they ride down the quiet path, Miyu closes her eyes for a second, enjoying the cool evening wind in her hair. She talks about how much she loves summer evenings. Yusuke agrees, and adds that tonight feels especially nice because of the smell after the rain. Miyu feels warmth bloom in her chest. She leans a little closer to him and admits that she loves that smell too. Suddenly, a motorcycle approaches. It turns out to be the police. They recognize her and casually remind her to head home soon. At lunch, Miyu excitedly tells her friends about her summer date plans. She has decided to invite Yusuke to the local festival instead of the larger one in the next town. She asks the girls whether she should wear a yukata. Minami immediately insists that she should, adding bluntly that there's no guarantee she'll still be dating Yusuke next year. Miyu grabs and shakes her in outrage at how negative that sounds. Aoi quickly steps in, explaining that Minami simply means Miyu should go all out while she can. Miyu accepts this much better. Aoi then gently reminds her not to get too lovesick about it. On the day of the festival, Miyu heads toward the meeting spot. She feels nervous about her yukata since she isn't fully confident she styled it correctly, and there are so many details she's unsure about. Still, she steels herself and walks toward Yusuke when she sees him. The moment he notices her, Yusuke tells her honestly that she looks beautiful. Miyu's brain short-circuits, since this is the first time anyone has ever called her beautiful. They head into the festival together, and the lively atmosphere quickly sweeps Miyu's nerves away. A group of boys nearly bumps into her, but Yusuke pulls her out of the way just in time. Instinctively, Miyu grabs onto his arm, only for Yusuke to take her hand properly, so they walk hand in hand. Miyu feels dizzy with happiness. She thinks to herself that they finally feel like a real couple. She tries to calm down and act composed, but fails almost instantly and decides she might as well enjoy the night fully. She even agrees to take photos with him. At one of the game stalls, Yusuke wins them a matching pair of balls as prizes. As they walk, Miyu casually mentions that she came prepared since she had actually imagined different date scenarios in advance and brought items just in case they needed them. Yusuke smiles at her, amused but touched. Later, Miyu notices a couple openly flirting ahead of them. She feels embarrassed watching them and then realizes she isn't that different. Tonight, she has been far more affectionate than usual. Just then, she sees Yusuke glance at his watch and assumes he needs to go home soon. To her surprise, he suggests they walk a little further instead. They end up at the edge of town near a bridge, where several people are already gathered. Miyu is confused until fireworks bloom in the distant sky. They're coming from the festival in the next town. Miyu thanks him warmly and tries to record the display on her phone, but the video turns out small. She decides to give up and put her phone away, but accidentally drops it. Both of them reach for it at the same time and their lips almost meet. They pull back in shock, but Miyu realizes that she actually wanted to kiss him. After they recover, Yosuke suggests that next year they should go closer to the fireworks. Miyu's face lights up at the implication that he is already planning a future with her. She agrees enthusiastically. Back at school, Miyu excitedly tells her friends that the date was amazing. Natsumi watches her classmates with anxiety. The group beside her is being especially loud and silly, and she finds them genuinely funny. She tries to stifle her laughter, but one of the boys notices her reaction and eagerly asks for her opinion on their comedy skit. Before she can respond, the other classmates quickly tell him to stop bothering her. Flustered, the boy returns to his friends and continues performing with them instead. The girls nearby notice how uncomfortable Natsumi looks and call the boys out for putting her on the spot, which immediately prompts them to apologize. Even so, Natsumi doesn't blame them. She doesn't like joining conversations and would rather just listen. She knows this can come across as rude, but she gets too nervous to speak up. Her friend Rikako returns and instantly picks up on Natsumi's usual anxious demeanor. Rikako points out that Natsumi actually can speak normally when she isn't nervous. Natsumi insists that she can't, explaining that her brain goes through too many steps just to form a single sentence. Rikako tries to reassure her that what happened earlier hardly counted as a real conversation, and that the boys were just overly excited. This doesn't comfort Natsumi at all, as she admits she feels even more nervous around boys than girls. Rikako argues that boys and girls aren't really that different, but this reminds Natsumi of something. She tells Rikako that she's interested in Yosuke. At first, Rikako has no idea who she means, but then she remembers that Yosuke is the other student who works in the library. Natsumi confirms this and tells her about the day Miyu came to the library. Natsumi overheard her talking to Yosuke and started to suspect something. That was when she realized that Yosuke was actually dating Miyu. Rikako seems a little disappointed, thinking Natsumi had a crush. But Natsumi explains that she wasn't attracted to him and was simply curious because she assumed he was similar to her. Natsumi adds that she has noticed Yosuke can casually talk to delinquents and seems comfortable around all kinds of people, which makes Rikako compare him to a familiar male protagonist from a manga or light novel. Natsumi mentions how difficult it was for her to hold in her laughter when he was talking, which leads Rikako to suggest that maybe she should just join in next time so she can laugh freely with others. Rikako then offers her own observation that she thinks Natsumi actually wants to be more like Yosuke. The moment Natsumi realizes Rikako might be right, she panics. Later in class, Natsumi realizes that she actually wants to be part of a group. Thinking back to that day in the library, she remembers that Kentaro had caught her laughing and even stared at her afterward. She vividly recalls how mortifying that moment felt. She ends up sinking into despair for the rest of the morning, so much so that even Rikako can sense something is wrong by lunchtime. When they finally settle for lunch, Natsumi quietly tells Rikako that she's decided to give up on trying to talk to people altogether. At that moment, Kentaro enters the classroom looking for Rikako. He notices Natsumi, and the two of them end up staring at each other in an awkward silence. Kentaro then bows in greeting, which makes Natsumi hurriedly bow back in panic. As she frets over how strange she must have looked, she also realizes that Rikako already knows Kentaro. Kentaro glances at her again and notices the stamp card in her desk. He mentions that he used to collect them too, when eventually got tired of eating bread every day. He adds that he had been aiming to get a Yeti cushion as a prize. The ridiculousness of this makes Natsumi struggle to hold in her laughter, while Rikako continues chatting with him. The two of them notice her inner battle and end up watching her for a moment. Before anything else can happen, Miyu suddenly bursts into the classroom to drag Kentaro away since a giant dragonfly has flown into their room and needs to catch it. As they leave, Miyu hands Kentaro a cage and a net and casually remarks that the girl he was talking to is cute. She meant Rikako, but Kentaro assumes she's talking about Natsumi and admits that he does think Natsumi is cute. Back in the classroom, Rikako realizes that Kentaro is the person Natsumi had been talking about earlier. She reassures Natsumi that he isn't a delinquent since she used to be his classmate. To prove her point, Rikako notes that a real troublemaker wouldn't obediently agree to chase a bug around the school. At this point, Yeti takes over to explain to the audience that since childhood, Kentaro has always been drawn to the smiles of unexpected people, especially those who are his complete opposites. However, Kentaro himself isn't aware of this tendency. So during their encounter in the library and again in the classroom earlier, Kentaro slowly began to find Natsumi undeniably adorable, even if he didn't fully understand why yet. Returning to Natsumi's perspective, she realizes that Kentaro has been coming to their classroom a lot lately. She nervously watches as Rikako and Kentaro chat animatedly, especially when Kentaro tries to draw her into their conversation about music. Natsumi struggles to keep up and can't quite find anything meaningful to add, but she tries anyway. Rikako notices how hard she is trying and silently roots for her. Rikako reflects that given Kentaro's easygoing personality, he would actually be the perfect practice partner for Natsumi to gradually overcome her shyness. At the same time, she can't ignore that Kentaro seems to be interested in Natsumi and struggles to keep her excitement in. She also notices that Kentaro has been giving Natsumi his bread stickers. But looking at Natsumi's expression, Rikako realizes she's probably just collecting them incidentally because she happens to buy bread. When Kentaro eventually leaves to return to his class, Natsumi visibly brightens. She tells Rikako that she really enjoyed listening to the two of them talk together. During an assembly, the principal gives a long speech reminding students to value their summer break. When it finally ends, then everyone returns to their classrooms. Miyu loudly complains about how drawn out the speech was. Her friends, including Yusuke, immediately agree. They begin chatting excitedly about summer vacation when Kentaro suddenly asks the group for advice on how to get someone's contact information. This makes everyone freeze and stare at him in surprise. Miyu excitedly suggests that she would take a photo together as an excuse to exchange numbers afterward. Shino asks Yusuke if that's how it went for him, but he pretends to be asleep. Shuji tries to answer for him, then ends up getting annoyed at how sweet the whole situation sounds. Shino then adds that another good approach might be inviting the person to join a game or an app. She mentions that she often sends messages to inactive group chats. Shuji wonders out loud why Shino sends invites to him as well. Shino casually replies that he doesn't count. Kentaro considers their suggestions until Shuji interrupts, asking whether they don't think it would be strange for someone to suddenly ask for contact information when they are close. The girls immediately shoot him looks of disdain as he awkwardly tries to justify his reasoning. Kentaro struggles to put his feelings into words. At first, he doesn't think he actually likes her, but the more he reflects on it, the more he realizes that he is starting to like her. His honest admission earns another wave of mixed reactions from the group. The girls, however, are clearly delighted, so much so that Manayami and Aoi notice the commotion. Meanwhile, in Natsumi's classroom, Rikako is already in a celebratory mood now that summer break has begun. She then spots Kentaro walking into their classroom and silently wishes him luck. She assumes he'll be indirect or roundabout about it, but to her surprise, Kentaro approaches Natsumi directly. He asks her to be friends with him and even offers his contact details. Natsumi immediately turns bright red, stunned that someone is actually asking to be her friend. She freezes at first, but then realizes that she might find it easier to communicate through text. Nervously, she takes out her phone, and the two of them exchange contact information. The entire time, Rikako is practically vibrating with excitement as she watches the interaction unfold. Back in Miyu's classroom, the group starts talking about what it really means to like someone. A few of them even tease Yusuke, asking when he first started liking Miyu, but he firmly refuses to answer. One evening, Miyu scrolls through her photo gallery and realizes that most of her summer has been spent just playing around. Determined to be more responsible, she decides to call Yusuke and invite him to do homework together tomorrow. She whispers on the phone because her brother is in the next room, and she doesn't want him to know that she's currently dating. They agree to meet at the library the following day and end the call after wishing each other good night. The next morning, Yusuke's mother is surprised to see him heading out. He tells her that he's going to the library but avoids mentioning that he's meeting Miyu. As Yusuke walks to the library, he feels unsettled for not mentioning Miyu, which is odd because he didn't exactly lie about going to the library. He spots Miyu running toward him, and they arrive at the library together, only to find it completely packed with people. With no seats available, Miyu suggests checking online for nearby cafes where they could study instead. But Yusuke proposes that they head to his house instead since he lives nearby. Miyu's heart immediately starts racing since this would be her first time going over. She suddenly becomes self-conscious about her outfit, noticing that her top shows her stomach, so she hurriedly pulls up her pants. Yusuke tells her not to worry because no one is home, thinking this will put her at ease, but Miyu's mind is anything but calm. Still, when they get there, they really do just study. Sitting across from each other with their notes spread out, both of them feel comfortable in each other's presence. Suddenly, Miyu's stomach growls. She tries to hide it, but it growls loudly again. Yusuke laughs softly and decides to make lunch for the two of them. While they eat, Miyu gathers her courage and asks whether he plans to tell his family about her. Yusuke admits that he hasn't because he doesn't talk much about himself. He wonders aloud if Miyu wants him to tell them, even offering to do so if she prefers. But Miyu insists that it should be his decision. She explains that every family is different, and some members might be more comfortable knowing than others. They finish lunch without any tension and return to studying. After a while, Yusuke excuses himself to grab a textbook from his room. The moment Miyu hears that, she perks up and follows him, curious to see what it's like. He lets her in, insisting there's nothing special about it, but Miyu happily looks around anyway. On his desk, she spots a Pokemon desk mat. Yasuke admits that he doesn't particularly care for it, but he's been using it since he was a kid. She then points out a seat cushion. Yasuke explains that his grandmother bought a whole set because it was cheaper and gave one to him. Taking advantage of the moment, Miyu sneakily asks to see his yearbook. Flipping through his middle school photos, she notes that aside from his glasses, he hasn't changed much. Then she says she's excited to see him in a suit someday. Suddenly, she leans in very close, making Yasuke both nervous and hopeful, but instead of kissing him, she's actually trying to get a better look at Tempura, who has wandered into the room. Delighted, Miyu immediately crouches down to greet the cat properly, saying that she needs to introduce herself the right way to his family. Watching her fuss over Tempura, Yasuke can't help but smile. They decide to leave through the garden, but as they step outside, Miyu slips. Yasuke catches her just in time. But in that exact moment, his grandmother arrives home and sees them in a very compromising position. Startled, Miyu straightens up and tries to introduce herself, but freezes, unsure what to call herself. Yasuke steps in and calmly introduces her as his girlfriend. His grandmother smiles warmly and offers Miyu some vegetables from their garden, which she happily accepts. Yasuke walks her home, carrying the vegetables for her. When Miyu gets back, she excitedly shows her mother what she brought and finally admits that she has a boyfriend now. Meanwhile, back at Yasuke's house, his grandmother is beaming at him, and his mother notices. One day, the class discusses the cultural festival since they find out they've been assigned to handle some food. During the preparations, Kentaro casually asks Miyu if she went to the library with Yasuke over the summer. Shino immediately begins teasing Miyu, which reminds her that she actually got to see Yasuke's house during the break. Miyu turns the question around and asks Kentaro what he did over the summer with Natsumi. Kentaro admits that he and Natsumi have been texting, but that's about it. In town, Natsumi is venting her worries to Rikako. She explains that she always takes too long to reply to Kentaro's messages because she overthinks everything she writes. Kentaro, on the other hand, responds almost immediately, but his replies are so short. She worries that she's the strange one, especially since her texts tend to be long. Rikako bluntly tells her to just ignore his messages if she finds it troublesome. Natsumi quickly defends herself, admitting that she enjoys texting Kentaro. She then reveals that Kentaro has invited her to call twice, and she turned him down. She's afraid he might eventually get tired of her constant rejections. On the other side, Kentaro is recounting his side of things to Miyu and Shino. Both girls suggest that Natsumi is probably just too shy to talk. They also express surprise over the types of girls he really likes. Kentaro reflects on middle school. Back then, there was a cheerful girl he got along well with, and a shy girl he had an actual crush on. In the end, the cheerful girl confessed to him, which left him confused because he only liked her platonically. Still, he ended up dating her. Although he has dating experience, none of the girls he was genuinely interested in ever went out with him. Miyu comments that he was with his last girlfriend for quite a while. Kentaro even adds that he and his ex are on friendly terms. Miyu admits that she's actually a little envious of people with more dating experience. Kentaro then casually brings up Ryudo, a past boyfriend of hers. In town, Shuji and Yasuke are out buying supplies when Shuji suddenly spots Natsumi and Rikako. The moment Natsumi notices them, she quickly looks away. She quietly nudges Rikako and whispers for her to look at Yasuke. Rikako immediately remembers that he's the guy Natsumi once admired. Shuji sneaks another glance at the girls and notices that they're looking in their direction and talking. Convinced they're discussing them, he hurriedly urges Yasuke to finish shopping. In reality, Natsumi and Rikako are discussing the items in the shop. Back in the classroom, Miyu struggles to explain the story, but she's saved when Manami and Aoi burst in to show off the menus they've designed for the festival. As Miyu walks over to talk to them, Shino presses Kentaro for more information about Rihido. Kentaro simply says that Rihido is a good guy and adds that they'll probably see him at the cultural festival. Shuji and Yasuke take a break from shopping and sit down with ice cream. Shuji hesitates before asking Yasuke whether he ever worries about how he handles his relationship. Lately, Shuji can't help comparing himself to Yasuke. In the past, he used to look down on him. But now that they've become closer friends, Shuji finds himself feeling inferior. To his surprise, Yasuke admits that he does worry. He says he often lacks confidence and isn't always sure if he's doing the right things. Finally, the day of the cultural festival arrives. Miyu's class is buzzing with excitement. After one last spirited cheer, everyone jumps into their roles, working hard while still laughing and making memories throughout the day. On the second day of the festival, Miyu is happy because she'll have time to walk around with Yasuke. Shino points out that Miyu's shirt is already covered in messages from classmates. Miyu eagerly asks Yasuke to write something too. As Yasuke starts writing his message, Shuji leans over and begins reading it out loud. Kentaro and the others quickly chime in that Yasuke should drop the honorifics in Miyu's name. As Miyu and Yusuke walk through the festival, she learns that this is actually the first time he's been able to properly enjoy the event. They attend as many scheduled events as they can, grab snacks at the P-Day room, and then wander through the various club exhibits. Meanwhile, Natsumi is in charge of the photography club's display. She anxiously convinces herself that the reason no one is stopping by is that she's giving off a bad aura. Her spiraling thoughts are interrupted when Miyu and Yusuke step inside. It takes her a moment to recognize them, and she quickly gives them a polite bow. Miyu immediately starts gesturing excitedly at Natsumi, which makes Natsumi panic. Miyu simply calls out to ask if it's all right for them to chat while they look around. One photo catches her attention and she enthusiastically compliments it. Natsumi shyly admits that she was the one who took it. She then entertains them as they move to different pictures. Yusuke points out that he likes the one featuring a yawning cat. Miyu immediately teases him, saying he only likes it because it's a cat, causing Natsumi to giggle and smile at them. After browsing a bit longer, Miyu thanks Natsumi before they leave. Once they're gone, Natsumi feels her chest swell with pride since she managed to hold a conversation. She starts pacing, replaying everything that just happened so she can commit everything to memory. Lost in thought, she walks right out of the exhibit area and almost collides with Kentaro. Startled, Natsumi gives him a nervous smile. Kentaro, equally surprised, drops his phone, cracking the screen in the process. Elsewhere, Shino tries to convince Shuji to take a break and explore the festival. She ends up physically pushing him out of their class restaurant. Just as they step outside, Ryuto approaches them. He introduces himself as someone who knows Kentaro, but doesn't share his name. Shino simply tells him that Kentaro has stepped out, so Ryuto decides to look around the festival. As he walks away, Shino remembers Kentaro mentioning that Ryuto might stop by and wonders if that was him. While wandering the halls, Ryuto passes by Miyu without recognizing her at first. It's only when she accidentally drops something and Yusuke bends down to pick it up for her that Ryuto realizes it's her. Yusuke stiffens slightly when he realizes Miyu and Ryuto are casually calling each other by their first names. Aoi soon notices them too and greets Ryuto. As Ryuto and Aoi begin chatting, Miyu quietly explains to Yusuke that she and Ryuto were classmates in middle school. Ryuto mentions that he came to the festival with some friends from his high school and was hoping to run into them while he was there. Even so, Yusuke can't shake the feeling that something is off. As Miyu and Ryuto attempt small talk, both of them are painfully aware how awkward they sound. Miyu secretly hopes Kentaro will appear and ease the tension. Meanwhile, Ryuto had assumed that enough time had passed for things to feel normal again, but it's becoming clear that he was wrong. Back in middle school, they were close friends. They even called each other by their first names. Their classmates constantly teased them, insisting they should just start dating no matter how much Miyu denied there was anything romantic between them. Eventually, Ryuto came up with a plan. He would pretend to confess to Miyu, she would then reject him flatly, and their classmates would finally stop. But when he casually asked her out, Miyu panicked instead of firmly rejecting him. Their classmates misread her flustered reaction and immediately began congratulating them. Caught up in the moment and unsure how to undo it, they decided to try dating, thinking maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But as they walked home together one day, everything felt different. Miyu found herself wondering how they had ever been such easy friends. The conversations that once felt natural suddenly felt forced. Ryuto noticed the troubled look on her face and suggested they try doing something couples normally do. When he reached out to hold her hand and leaned closer, Miyu felt a sudden, undeniable realization that she didn't like him that way at all. Miyu hesitated, and Ryuto noticed immediately. He gently withdrew and suggested that they just go back to being friends. That only made Miyu feel worse, guilty for even agreeing to date him in the first place. In the present, both of them quietly regret their relationship. Miyu wonders if she should apologize, but Ryuto speaks first. He admits that he knows Miyu avoids attending their middle school reunions if he's going to be there. So he suggests they finally put the past behind them and return to being friends. He raises his fist and Miyu hesitates only a second before bumping it. When he leaves, Aoi expresses her surprise that they hadn't properly made up until now. Miyu is surprised too since Ryuto had managed to ease her nerves. Minami grumbles that she still doesn't fully understand the history between them and tries to rope Yusuke into complaining with her. But when they all look at Yusuke, they freeze since there's a dark, unreadable aura surrounding him. Minami and Aoi quickly decide to give the couple some space. Deciding honesty is better than hesitation, Miyu tells him the truth that she and Ryuto had briefly dated, but she describes it as a mistake. Even as she says it, anxiety creeps into her chest since she thinks Yusuke might not like her because of her past. Yusuke apologizes and says he shouldn't make her reassure him like that. He excuses himself, claiming he needs to sort out his own feelings. Then he walks away, leaving Miyu confused and unsettled. Elsewhere, Ryuto finally runs into Kentaro. He lightly scolds him for not showing up sooner, but then thanks him because he and Miyu were able to talk and clear the air. Kentaro blinks in confusion since he hadn't even realized they were on bad terms. He casually adds that no one could possibly hate Rihido. Meanwhile, Miyu finds Shino and anxiously recounts what happened. Shino tries to reassure her, suggesting that Yasuke is probably just jealous since Rihido is undeniably handsome. Miyu immediately rejects that idea, claiming that no matter how good-looking Rihido is, she insists she could never fall in love with him. But as she says it, she realizes that the relationship wasn't nothing. It left her with regret, reflection, and lessons. Shino blushes while talking about how pure first relationships are. Miyu suddenly tells her that not all first relationships are pure. She explains that a relationship is pure if it is built on honesty. Her eyes flare with determination as she declares she's going to find Yasuke. Charging forward dramatically, she leaves Shino behind, who wishes she could experience that kind of love. As Shino leaves, she accidentally bumps into someone. Hoping for a romantic encounter, she is left disappointed when she realizes it is just Shuji. Up on the rooftop, Yasuke stares out over the festival grounds. He knew logically that Miyu might have had relationships before him, but seeing it in front of him and knowing it are two very different things. He had hoped to slowly build confidence in their relationship. Instead, he realizes he's becoming greedy and possessive. Before he can spiral further, Miyu's voice calls his name and she wraps her arms around his torso. She tells him she loves him and how honest he is. But she gently points out that when something troubles him, he tends to shut down and keep it to himself. She wants him to share those thoughts with her. An announcement echoes across campus, calling all students to gather in the gymnasium. Miyu insists they stay a little longer. Yasuke holds her hand as he admits he's been feeling uneasy because of his lack of confidence. Miyu is relieved that it isn't purely about her, but she still apologizes for making him uncomfortable. Yasuke then admits that Rihido seems like the kind of person who would be her type. Miyu immediately counters that there are plenty of girls who seem like Yasuke's type. The absurdity of their logic makes them both laugh. Then Yasuke asks quietly if everyone calls her Miyu. She explains that Rihido just liked ignoring formalities, but Yasuke notices that she calls Rihido by his first name. Miyu catches the subtle shift and tries to get him to open up further, but another announcement blares, calling their names. This time, Miyu calls his first name so they can make their way to the gym. And as they walk, a message Yasuke wrote earlier can still be seen on the back of her shirt. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss new episode every week.